So, what is it that you want in life? Most people answer that question very quickly. They say that they want to be happy. That sounds obvious. But the moment you accept the answer, there's another question. How exactly are you trying to become happy? For most people, the answer is the same. You get the things that you want: a better job, more money, a bigger house, the right partner. And for a while, this strategy seems to work. You want something and you go after it, and then you get it. And when you do, you feel lighter, sort of relieved, maybe even proud. Then something happens, something so familiar we barely notice it anymore. You just get used to it. The thing that once felt like an answer becomes part of the background. You don't live happily ever after. You return more or less to where you were before. And soon enough, you find yourself wanting something else, on the belief that this next thing will finally do it. But here's a blunt observation: if you are unhappy right now, it means that nothing you've ever achieved has managed to make you permanently happy. And yet the dream survives, right? This alone should make you uneasy, because maybe, just maybe, the problem is not lack of effort or ambition or discipline. Maybe the way we all solve this problem of getting happiness is wrong. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. Human beings are really good at adjusting. We adapt not only to pain and loss, but to comfort and success as well. The new phone that you once loved becomes just a phone. The job you once desperately wanted becomes the job you complain about. The life that you once imagined becomes the life you just rush through. So, what this creates is something like a treadmill. You keep moving and you keep upgrading, but happiness never really arrives. I like to think of it as a mirage in a desert. A thirsty person sees water in the distance and walks towards it, convinced that relief is very close. But when they arrive, it just vanishes. They end up as thirsty as before, sometimes even more so. Now, this is what happens when happiness equals getting what you want. It's based on what I call the gap theory of happiness. You're unhappy because there's a gap between what you want and what you have. So the solution becomes obvious. Just close the gap. Get the thing, problem solved. Easy and logical, right? And because it feels so obvious, people across cultures and centuries have relied on this. I know that I have. The problem is that we are machines of desire. If you're normal, your mind is great at producing new desires. And getting what you want does not stop that machine. At best, it just slows it down for a few days or a few hours. Then it starts up again. Now, that would be bad enough if this strategy was just ineffective, but it's worse than that. The more you follow the gap theory, the more dissatisfied you become. And dissatisfaction quietly and firmly rules out happiness. The ancient Stoic philosophers noticed this problem long before anyone had a name for it. Their solution was not dramatic, it was quite simple. If a gap between what you have and what you want causes unhappiness, there are two ways to close that gap. You can get what you want, or you can want what you already have. I'll say it again. You can want what you already have. Instead of endlessly upgrading your life, you learn to live inside it. The Stoics argued that a person with a modest life, who genuinely accepts it, is far better off than the wealthy person who's always replacing things. A newer car, a bigger house, a younger partner, etc. From the outside, everybody is jealous of that wealthy person. People imagine that if only they had that life, all their problems would disappear. But the truth is far simpler. They're just on a very expensive treadmill. So the real question becomes, how do you actually learn to want what you already have? The Stoics suggested a practice called negative visualization. Now, it sounds a little dark, but it is not meant to be. So here's how it works. You take something important in your life, your partner or your job or your health or your child, and for a few seconds, you imagine it disappearing. Not to torment yourself, just briefly. You imagine what your life would look like without it. Then you stop and you return to the present. Now, these are not pleasant thoughts, but the point is not to live in them. The point is contrast. Because when you do this properly, something subtle happens. You stop taking your life for granted. What once felt ordinary suddenly feels like something you can lose, because that's the truth. It'll start to feel valuable when you know it can be lost. So if you imagine losing your partner, you might listen more carefully the next time they speak. If you imagine losing your child, even for a moment, you'll actually feel it. You'll put your phone down, you might read to them, and you might play with them instead of scrolling. These small, almost forgettable moments begin to matter again. That's the paradox. Briefly imagining loss does not make life darker. It makes it sharper. The Stoic philosophers were not asking you to obsess over death or disaster. They were asking you to not sleepwalk through what you already have. Because the moment you stop taking life for granted, the treadmill slows. And in that slowing, happiness does not arrive as excitement or achievement. It arrives quietly as enough.